And so since I guess I am the official member in this space, and I'm also the co-chair, I will call the meeting to order at 2:06 p.m. I don't really have motions that I can talk about because I would need people to second them and all of those good things. So I can only explain what is happening and thoughts around the cohort, and what we have been getting from all of our anecdotal evidence with the county, and that's really sustainable resources to, our vision is always helping those who are most underserved, marginalized, and disenfranchised in our communities. And so we know not only through the survey that has come out through the Montgomery County County Executive's Office that recently came out, but also through the Montgomery County and Maryland Health Department, that the outcomes for Black, trans, and non-binary people and trans and non-binary people of color the outcomes are worse in every facet of measurable wellness, from healthcare to food insecurity to job insecurity to housing insecurity. And when we look at the reporting rates of our intersectional underserved communities and LGBTQIA plus queer and trans communities of color in Montgomery County. We had queer and trans and non-binary folks reporting on the survey, but a lot of the survey didn't have information from those communities of color. And so we see that, of course, there are spaces where people don't feel comfortable expressing their identities. And we also know that we often aren't reaching those communities. And so when we think about the resources and the community spaces and the programs that we're building, we are specifically trying to reach the communities who are the most marginalized, who we are not seeing as much, and of course provide resources for. As you know, Ezra, when you do TDOR, when you've done TDOR in the past, I've always noticed, and I learned this from you and a lot of my other trans siblings, that queer people of color, getting them into spaces is extremely important and difficult. You provided Ubers and ride shares for people, and make sure that everything, and we do this with the Pride Center and with Live in Your Truth, that everything is metro accessible, because it's extremely important that public transportation is, that the whatever space we're programming in, that there's public transportation there as well. And so, from our anecdotal points of view and statistics, we are always looking to ensure that the money that we are spending, the jobs that we are providing, are specifically there and in place and intentionally going to those community members. And so, Sam and Ezra, I would just love to hear your thoughts on, not only physical and virtual spaces in Montgomery County, but, the lack thereof, and then what places do you see that we need to mitigate and or completely change or just provide resources in?
What is TDOR?
TDOR is Transgender Day of Remembrance. So it is the National Day of Mourning that, it's a somber event, but we also try and celebrate the lives of all of our lost trans brothers and sisters, while bringing bringing attention to the fact that there are people who were killed who are trans every year, who are attacked, and some of those individuals, unfortunately, have been in this county.
Thank you.
Well, I'll say that I'm here mainly for informational purposes, to find out, what's going on, what you have looking forward, and to figure out how I can be useful. So anyway.
You're muted.
So
No,
I
I'm
can tell
not.
you a little bit about what's going on in terms of like the cohort space. We've had 2 individual meetings now with our cohort members, and there are 3 of us. And we have been actively talking about the need for like our policy measures going to be for physical space. Montgomery County is the most populous county in Maryland. It is has a GDP higher than some countries. And we do not have any county funding that specifically goes towards LGBTQIA folks. And we also see that, you know, now with we're an attack, like the queer and trans people and non-binary people are under attack in the legislature, as well as several other facets of life, not in our specific legislature, but in legislatures around the nation, and then also within Maryland. So people are, and of course, Westmore made Maryland a sanctuary state for trans affirming care and gender affirming care. So we see that there are members who are moving here that are seeking out culturally competent care. And we want to make sure that as a county, we are putting in resources and attention into those very, like, you know, queer people exist across every single facet of our society and every single religion and every single space, and have since the beginning of time. And so we want to ensure that there is wellness within those communities. And so our largest policy measure that we are going to be writing for is, of course, a physical space that is culturally competent, that really that is driven by the needs of our community, and not just like a gathering space for you know, our like cis gay folks, that often what happens in pride spaces.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sam, did you have any questions? Didn't want to put you on the spot if you're just here to listen.
I know he's in a public space right now, so if he wants to say something, he may be able to. Here it is. He's saying there's a lot of chatter out here. I asked him if he wanted me to say that he's in a public space and may not be able to talk, and or he can put something in the chat, but he's not. He
Okay.
doesn't necessarily need to do either.
Okay. Yeah. Any contributions that you'd like to make, Sam? We'd love to hear them. And, you know, from your point of view, what policy measures that you you know, if you were in our position, that you would put in space to specifically help your communities? Because I always ask that everyone, take it from an individual point of view. What do you need right now? Because that's so important. And one of the things that Dr. Lorraine Hutchins was talking about when we were in her community, which is it's an aging community in Brookville, Sandy Spring, Friend's House. It's Friend's House, so it's a Quaker community. And you know, she was talking about the fact that some of our elders aren't safe, and sometimes when they go into aging communities have to go back in the closet. And so I know. So ensuring that we reach them in their spaces. And when I was talking to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs for Maryland, Tony Woodson, he was telling me that that there are veterans who, now that they are out of the military, they're in Maryland, and we are a you know, an affirming state and a space where we want to provide space for all people's identities. There are a lot of people who are looking, a lot of our aging folks and our veterans who are looking for trans and gender affirming care because they have existed in spaces where they were not able to be themselves. And so now that they are in this new part of their life, they're like, I really want to just live and be myself. And so we want to make sure that, like, you know, inside of Montgomery County, are there systematic ways that we can have training across the board in our health spaces? So it's not just doctors we're talking to, but the front desk people, the phlebotomist, the your intake professional, your pharmacy tech, like, so that if they see someone who may be different or that they don't understand, that they're easily able to just like step back and listen, because, you know, most of these practices that we're teaching are very it's very niche and small, and sometimes individualistic, but it's like, you know, everything is just a lesson in humanity and how we can just treat everybody a little bit better with kindness and respect and listen to them. You're on mute, Selena.
Sam is saying, so I've got like 3 computers going at the same time. I do wonder if there are lessons we could learn from, oh shoot, it disappeared. I do wonder if there are lessons we could learn from DC government's relationship / partnership with Whitman Walker, or if we as a county could foster entities like Whitman Walker that originates around healthcare but provides a physical space and a community for LGBTQ plus people beyond just healthcare. Now you're on mute.
So, Sam, that is a fantastic question and a wonderful suggestion. And if you have, you know, specific outreach or contacts within Whitman Walker, I would, you know, I've spoken to them in the past, but I would absolutely like love to see their current models and how they do their forms and things like that. To, you know, to as a point of reference or a starting point. But I see that as a very real possibility because fortunately for us, the Department of Health and Human Services, and specifically their Ending HIV and AIDS program, and the program director and the program manager, they are massive, amazing allies to our communities. And so they specifically are supporting us in right now virtual spaces and trying to create presence. And I partner with them on almost every single program because it's just to provide testing, health and STI resources and wellness resources. And so they are really, they're very culturally competent. And I could see building a space where it's like, it's not just about health, but health is a crux of a component. We just started.
Yeah, it's the emergency time. I'll go acknowledge that.
Okay.
You're muted.
Sorry. That was wonderful. A second one came in Spanish. I am so glad that they do that.
Yeah.
Like anytime I see some emergency measures.
I plugged it. You can hear like everybody in the offices, all their phones going up. I plugged in my earphones, so I can't hear it.
Can't hear yours. But
That's-
Sam, I can definitely see not only the need for that, but like we have just with the great working relationships. And also we have this health cohort throughout Montgomery County where we work with the Department of Health and Human Services and a lot of different nonprofit and private providers. And we just talk about how can we create wellness from a status neutral approach in our queer and marginalized and underserved communities. And it's wonderful because we're all working with the status neutral approach, which means that we are treating everyone to prevent the spread of STIs and HIV and AIDS. So that means it doesn't matter what we're encouraging everyone to know their status. It doesn't matter what your status is, but there are ways that we can mitigate the spread of HIV and AIDS and STIs and promote health and wellness by ensuring that we like I said, status neutral approach means that we're treating everyone. If you don't have any STIs or HIV, then we of course direct you to PrEP services and ensure that you, if you are sexually active, that there are PrEP services that you know everything about them and that you have you're able to sign up for healthcare and like any of the restrictions within there. And if you're not able to, that you're able to get services in some facet. The one thing that we have, the one issue that I have had this year is surrounding youth where they need care and unfortunately cannot be out to their family. And so that is something where it's like, I don't know the answers, and I am just trying to figure it out and ask everyone. So if you ever have a suggestion or resources that we can lean into, or even an organization that may specialize that we can try and like model after, that would be, I'd love to know about them. And I know that like our committee and our partners would too, because the government is, their hands are tied. You know, when we're talking about HHS in this program, their hands are completely tied when you're talking about youth and having like a particular status, because their parents have to be informed in, you know, if in certain situations. And then we can't really disclose anyone's health information to try and seek out care, because then there's HIPAA violations in place. There's so many different like layers of things that we're trying to work through. And so if you all know any organizations that are even out of state, like I know the Ali Fournier Center in New York, even if they're out of state, like who navigates these situations well. You pointed to Whitman Walker. I would love to just to chat with them and their directors, executive team, look at what their organizational structure looks like, and their funding methods as well, so that we can kind of say like, this is what's worked in the past for our communities, and these are outcomes we could see that could be mitigated or done really right if we model like our institutions or our forms after them.
Sam says he can look into the Whitman Walker issue.
Thank you, Sam.
So I'll connect the two of you.
Wonderful. Well, you know, we wouldn't be voting on anything right now, but you know, within like, as we're preparing these like policy measures that I know that we'll be talking about within our next meeting that will come up in October, you know, within the next week or so, when we're able to, you know, get everyone in the same place. But if you have, or other community members have suggestions or any direction where you feel like this is where we should be like pouring resources, because I know firsthand that I definitely don't think of everything. I don't think of most things, because it's like, you know, it's the human condition. It's the human condition, but I am always here to like listen and learn from people, because you know, I feel like that's the only way to do true advocacy work, is just to hear what others have to say. So like, if we're missing some of our community members or folks where we feel like, you know, we need money in this area, like if there's a specific area in like Wheaton or Silver Spring or Germantown or Damascus, you know, where there aren't resources. I know I was in communication with Poolsville over the last couple of weeks, because they had their Poolsville Day. They're gathering resources, and the local government of Poolsville has given some money to really help there, because they have a community that isn't as accepting as our more urban parts of Montgomery County, where they're out in a more rural area. And so it's like, you know, sometimes I didn't think of that some rural spaces would need as much help, but you know, they tell me that they always get queer folks showing up at every at, you know, everything. And then there are Black and queer, trans and non-binary and people of color that are inside of their communities, who, you know, when they know that there's going to be something queer specific, they will go, but outside of that, you won't really see them in spaces. And so it's like, okay, well, now I know that's like, there is a need for community. We just, we have to create it so that people feel a sense of that community.
So is there a resource for events?
There is. So we do, so it's right now, and this website just launched. It came from the county, and it's like duplicated on the Live in Your Truth site, and it will be duplicated on the MoCo Pride Center website. It's a county-wide resource page. So right now, I know that I should note my own particular website because I manage it, but the one from ours is livingyourtruth.org/MoCo LGBTQIA, and that has a list of all of the resources currently, except for faith resources, because we're still building out the list. And so those will be added on this week or next week with our current faith-based resources. But there's events, there's social support groups, there are trans-specific groups, there's intersectional specific groups for, for people, for queer Spanish speakers. There's a group specifically for trans Hispanic people. So there's like, meeting groups that are virtual and physical. And then we have like lists of events and things like that that are also coming up that are on there as well. And then the county website is montgomerycountypride.org. And am I correct in that? Pride. Yes, it is. So the county website that we're going to, that will be the one that's going to get like most of the updates for all of the resources is montgomerycountypride.org. And then that's the one that the actual health department, Health and Human Services is managing right now. So like I said, they're a really great ally, and they are, and the department head, I'm sure he doesn't care. Because he's an out queer man. He is a queer person of color himself, and so I'm sure that he like, not only is this work personal to him, but the fight that he is in with ending the HIV and AIDS epidemic is also like, it's close to all of our homes, because we want to ensure that like our communities just have wellness and can live in their truth. Was a plug for me. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it was a plug. We got it. The report. So Amina sent me the report. It's a beautiful report, by the way. And then Dr. Davis was here yesterday at the council, and she talked about a number of things. But one of the things that she said was that there was supposed to be some sort of event or something on October 11th. And she said that the report would be released then. I think that's the word she used. So I didn't know if it was public yet, because some of us have it. You're muted.
It's posted on the website, so it is public.
Okay.
And so, but I think that I'm actually not familiar with Dr. Davis, but if they're from the county, I think that there could be a couple of things happening. So I know that Kate's office is having the pronouns thing, but that's not what you were talking about.
No. Are you coming to that, by the way?
Yes, I am going to go to that. I don't even remember. It's on my calendar. Oh,
It's October 17th. Dr. Davis is Montgomery County's health officer.
Yes,
Public
international
health officer.
Yes. So I think perhaps Amina was trying to do a press conference on the 11th, but the county executive is going to be out of town or not in the office. So I think that we're now looking at the 18th. And so as soon as we get confirmation, we're going to do a press conference releasing that, and not just releasing it, but talking about the survey findings. And I believe that the MMCTV survey findings that we just interviewed about today will be out next week, so people can like look at a preview on that and then get more of the full report, or download the entire report at montgomerycountypride.org or livingyourtruth.org. And yes, so the press conference is not happening next week on the 11th, but that's when it was scheduled for, and so now we're looking at the 18th.
Okay. So the 18th is a
Wednesday after.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, does anybody have any other questions in terms of like progress reports and things like that, or other happenings with the anti-hate task force?
Your date to present is
How often do you meet?
That's a great question. It is sporadic. I would say like twice a month, but we're going to
Okay.
be meeting more than that until like, I mean, when getting our, and ensuring that our policy recommendations are very tight and sound. So Selena, what day did you say we meet?
November 9th.
November
Okay.
9th? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Wonderful. Awesome. All right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
But you'll get with the others and let me know about a next date so I can send you whatever you need.
Yep, absolutely. I'm gonna send an email as soon as we get off now, and see when we will be meeting next. And then I am hoping that what we'll do with our next meeting is I'm hoping that we will have discussions on specifics in terms of our policy recommendations, and then we will start working to then vote on the specific like finalized policy recommendations that we'll be presenting on the 9th.
Okay.
Awesome. That's what go ahead. As
On November 9th?
Yes, November 9th.
Okay. What time is that meeting?
7 p.m.
Okay. What day of the week is that? That is a good question.
It is a
It's Thursday.
Thursday.
At 7?
Yes, at 7. But we'll send out 2 meeting times that we will have before that, because we'll meet at least 2 more times before the 9th when we present.
Okay. And are we, is the November 9th at 7, is that a county council meeting or?
It's the
No.
full count. It's the full cohort meet. It's the
Okay.
full anti-hate task force meeting. And then our
Gotcha.
cohort will be presenting. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, if there is nothing else, I can't really have someone second me calling this meeting to a close, but I will call the meeting to its conclusion. And I want to just thank you both, Ezra and Sam, for being here. Sam, I know that you, I believe that you have my email, but Selena, if you could send my email to Sam, so that I could check out those Whitman Walker resources, I would absolutely love to. And yeah, I mean, if they have virtual support groups or anything like that, I would love to go to a meeting just to see what it's all about. And I know that just as FYI for individuals who are interested in Montgomery County LGBTQIA plus affairs, the MoCo Pride Center has its co-working regeneration space that is in full swing, and the next one is on Friday, October 13th. And so you can visit mocopridecenter.org to learn more information, or livingyourtruth.org, and we will have that information in those spaces, so that people, it's a donate what you want to come and co-work, but for students it's free. And of course we have sliding scale for everything, because money should never be a barrier to access. So we'd love to have you in these spaces.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Selena, for helping and facilitating. And you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
All right,
Thank
you too.
you.
All right.
See you.
All right.
Bye-bye.